Thank you very much. And now we are going for the last presentation by Tolga Aksu from Istanbul, Turkey.
Dear Chairman, dear colleagues, today I will try to briefly discuss a relatively new and interventional treatment strategy in patients with syncope. And before starting my presentation, I would like to explain there are at least 1,500 autonomic ganglia around left and right atrium. We know that there are parasympathetic neural bodies within this epicardial autonomic ganglia. And we also know that in some well-defined area like epicardial fat pad, we are seeing clustering of this autonomic ganglia. And then if we can detect this site, let's see what we can do during ablation. In this experimental strategy, as you see that, if you perform vagal stimulation, you can cause negative dronotropic and chronotropic effect. So you can decrease sinus rate and you can perform AV block in such a situation. But if you surgically removed inferior vena cava left atrial fat pad around coronary sinus ostium and you will apply vagal stimulation, you can prevent all AV block, vagally mediated AV block episodes. So this area should be important for vagal innervation of AV node. And then if you surgically removed right atrial and right pulmonary vein fat pad between superior vena cava and right pulmonary vein, you can also eliminate vagal effect on sinus node. So based on this experimental strategy, and if we look at the real anatomical specimen in human, we know that at least 5 major and 2 minor GP area containing the almost all autonomic ganglia sites. You can see this localization of this GP in both anatomical schematization and 3D mapping system. I will not explain with detail, but during electrophysiological study, checking electrogram and using 3D mapping system, we can detect the localization of this GP. And if we can ablate this epicardial autonomic ganglia, we can eliminate parasympathetic effect on sinus node and AV conduction system. And here you see the new era in GP mapping strategy. Now we are combining 3D CT and we can see the epicardial fat pad, distribution of epicardial fat pad, and also we can map fragmentation on electrogram to see the neural incursion sites. And by combination of these two techniques, we can easily detect the localization of this autonomic ganglia during electrophysiological study. This is important because we clearly know that enhanced parasympathetic tonus has a strong relationship between carotid syndrome and reflex syncope patient. So if the reason is parasympathetic overactivity of the type of the syncope, or reflex syncope is dominant cardioinhibitory type, and if we can eliminate parasympathetic arm, or if we can perform parasympathetic denervation, we can eliminate the vasovagal syncope episode. According to the latest ESC guideline, cardiac pacing is suggested in dominant cardioinhibitory type reflex syncope patient. But if you look at the studies about pacing, look at that. If you include the patient younger than 40 years old, cardiac pacing has no effect. This is a very important issue. So we are talking about a very young population, especially in great majority of dominant cardioinhibitory type reflex syncope. We are seeing too many young patients with recurrent and traumatic syncope. So there is no clear randomized control trial showing a positive effect of cardiac pacing in this young population. But in older population, especially older than 6 years old, closed-loop stimulation system has a great effect. According to the studies, and in great majority of paper, they use tilt testing to select their potential candidates for treatment. So, according to our experience, if there is recurrent and refractory vasovagal syncope after conservative, of course, and maybe pharmacological treatment, you can use tilt testing or ILR to show or to demonstrate dominant cardioinhibitory response. And after that, based on the patient age, you should select cardiac pacing or cardioneuroablation. Look at some papers about cardioneuroablation, effect of cardioneuroablation. all these one are observational studies, by the way. But in that study, the success rate was 90% without syncope recurrence during 3 years follow-up period. This is another study from Chinese group. They performed left atrial ablation and followed their patient 18 months. And they also showed positive effect on cardioneuroablation in mixed type patient population, not just pure cardioinhibitory type. This is our study. We usually included patient with pure cardioinhibitory type syncope, but we also showed a positive effect in mixed type patient. But after the CNA, we checked tilt testing, and we still found some vasodepressive response after cardioneuroablation strategy. So according to our experience, cardioneuroablation has no effect on vasodepressive component. We compared CNA with conservative treatment. This is not a randomized control trial, by the way, but we compared in some patient, a pure cardioinhibitory reflex syncope patient, and we found that CNA is related to 77% relative and 36% absolute risk reduction of 4-year syncopal recurrence. We compared CNA and cardiac pacing. In great majority of cardiac pacing arm, they implanted CLS pacing system, and we found a similar success rate during follow-up. This was the first randomized control trial by Roman Piotrowski, but very small study. You see the number of patients, but at the end of the 2 years follow-up period, the primary endpoint occurred in only 8% in patients with CNA arm, but it was 54% in control arm. This is another randomized control trial, but not a sham control study, compared biatrial ablation and left atrial ablation, but the success rate, syncope-free survival, was higher than 90%. I will show two meta-analyses about CNA in vasovagal syncope patients. According to these studies, the success rate seems as 90%, but if you perform right atrium only ablation, success rate will decrease, so we suggest biatrial or left atrial ablation if you decide to perform CNA. This is another meta-analysis, showed the similar results. Recently, we published a scientific statement about cardioneuroablation. Michael and Jean-Claude Tehora was the co-author of in this publication, and we suggested such an algorithm to select our patient. We strongly suggest to use tilt testing, carotid sinus massage, standing test, or 24-hour ambulatory pressure monitoring to show the dominant response, cardioinhibitor or vasodepressor type. And then, if you see dominant cardioinhibitor response, and if the patient is younger than 6 years old, CNA should be the first option if the patient needs any interventional treatment. But in patient older than 6 years old, it is not easy to differentiate structural involvement on sinus node or AV conduction system, and there are too many randomized control trials showing a positive effect of pacemaker. So in this older population, cardiac pacing should be selected. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Tolga, for this very informative presentation.
I have a question for Dr. Axu. Ibarguedas from Costa Rica. When you perform a cardioneuroablation, do you have a straightforward protocol? How do you evaluate the efficacy of the ablation after you do it? Do you do it by an anatomical approach, or do you stimulate with high frequency in the just to verify the efficacy of the treatment? And if you have a recurrent patient, do you perform another ablation? What is your approach?
Yeah, this is all of them is very important question. The first one, I think that high frequency stimulation or extracardiac vagal stimulation is not the best option for procedural endpoint, because of course it shows us the parasympathetic effect on sinus node and AV node, but if in technical details there are some postganglionated fibers from autonomic epicardial ganglia to target organ like sinoatrial node or AV conduction system. So during ablation, you can also ablate these postganglionated neuronal fibers, but if you just ablate postganglionated fibers, your effect will be transient. So we should target real autonomic ganglia. According to my experience, the best endpoint is related to best mapping method. For example, we are combining 3D CT, we are seeing epicardial fat pad distribution, and we combine this data with 3D mapping and functional electrogram analysis, and then we are trying to eliminate all targeted electrogram in the relevant area. And if we achieve this target, we finish the procedure. How we can follow our patient? I think that the heart rate variability is very, very important to show the reinnervation in the follow-up period, because we are seeing clear parasympathetic denervation after the CNA, like a cutoff, clear cutoff after the CNA. And during follow-up, if you are seeing a change to baseline, you can imagine in near future you can see new syncope episodes in this patient. And I should like to indicate that in all patients you will see reinnervation. It is not possible to completely eliminate parasympathetic autonomic ganglia after 6 years, maybe 7 years, but you will see reinnervation and you will need redo procedure, especially in young patients. But it's a chance actually, because if we completely eliminate parasympathetic arm, it will be very dangerous in some patient like myocardial infarction or a heart failure patient. But we will see reinnervation, and in such a patient, I am doing redo procedure, very limited ablation in the reinnervation area.
Thank you. And Tolga, do you use special softwares for your CT analysis? I mean, do you use a standard CT, or do you use a special software with the fat pad showing the fat pad?
Yeah. Unfortunately, you need to use a special software for that, of course. But I think that your local radiologist can learn this one, because the issue is related to epicardial fat pad thickness. It's not so difficult. And by using, actually, without using anything, we can already combine 3D CT and 3D map. It's possible in all 3D mapping system. But just important issue, you have to explain, we need a thickness of epicardial fat pad in 3D CT image. But now I am usually working with some companies about that to get this data. But of course, your radiologist can learn, and you can do that without paying anything.
Thank you. Aaron, yes?
I have actually a question also for Tolga. It's a bit of a technical question, but when we talk about cardioinhibitory syncope, it could be sinus pauses, or it could be AV block, right? So with CNA, does this change your strategy if you know if it's just sinus or if it's both with AV block? Do you target different areas, number one? And number two, is the efficacy of the CNA different, the result of the procedure different if it's just purely sinus or combined with AV block, or maybe just purely AV block?
Yes, perfect question. And totally everything changed about based on the indication. If you are talking about pure sinus pulse or asystole, this is the best patient population for CNA, because just a very limited ablation around right superior GP and right inferior GP, you can eliminate everything. But if you are talking about AV block, AV not receive too many connection from different area like posterior medial left GP, right superior GP, Marshall tract area. So it's not easy to deal with this AV block population. We are doing stepwise ablation in AV block patient. We are starting firstly from posterior medial left GP, checking AV node Wenckebach point, AH interval. And then we are going to other station if we cannot achieve the desired target. But for example, if pure AV block patient, you increase sinus rate. it will worsen the status of AV block. So you should do completely different strategy in AV block patient.
Tolga, do you wait for a systole or for bradycardia before performing cardioneuroablation?
Yes, every time.
A
Every time.
systole
Because
or
in other ways, if there is dominant vasodepressory response in anything, I always say my patient after CNA we can see new syncope episodes. So we have to show dominant cardioventricular response by ILR or tilt.